بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. إن شاء Allah ta'ala we'll start the tafsir of Surah Al-Ahqaf, the tafsir of Surah Al-Ahqaf right after Surah Al-Jathiyah. And Surah Al-Ahqaf, as the rest of the Hawamim surahs that start with Hamim, are Makki surahs, and they are in the same order in the Mus'haf. Also they were revealed in the same manner, time-wise. And we talked about the maqasid or the objectives of these surahs, which is in general how the Makki surahs are, establishing the Aqidah, establishing the matters of belief. And with Al-Aqidah is the belief, and not just the belief in the unseen, but the belief also of how this worldly life that we live in, how to believe in it, how to see things in this life, which is as previously mentioned in Surah Al-Jathiyah about the basair, about the proper vision of things. This is part of the Aqidah, part of the belief, even though the ulama, they don't mention that in the books of Aqidah, meaning the matters of the unseen, but it's part of what has been established in the surahs that were revealed in Mecca. What is this worldly life versus the hereafter? Who are the successful ones? Who are the losers? What's this life is about? Changing completely in many areas what the disbelievers or people in general, if they don't seek guidance from the Quran, how they see things in this life. So this is one of the great benefits that a person would understand based on the belief, and this is the aqidah of the hereafter. So when a person understand and believe and have the proper belief of al-yawm al-akhir, which these surahs are establishing, then the belief in this dunya will fall in the same in the proper place, to look at this worldly life in the right place with al-iman bil-yawm al-akhir. And of course the Quran, which is all of these surahs starts with mentioning the Quran, and that's the guidance to all mankind and the specific guidance in it. And we'll see some similarities and things that are different. And the more the person reflect, the more that you can see what's the differences even between these surahs and how they start. So as we see here, inshallah ta'ala, in front of us, the first three verses, which is the first and the second one are exactly like Surah Al-Jathiyah, the previous one. So we'll start with reciting the first three verses, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون. The surah is named Surah Al-Ahqaf, and that's the only name that is known for the surah, and it's the only surah that mentions the name Al-Ahqaf, which is in verse number 21. In verse number 21, surah, or the name of Al-Ahqaf, is mentioned the region of Al-Ahqaf. And we'll talk about what Al-Ahqaf means linguistically even, but it refers to the region of the people of Ad. So here the translation of these three verses, Hamim, the second ayah, the revelation of the book is from Allah, the exalted in might, the wise. We did not create the heavens and earth and what is between them except in truth and for a specified term. But those who disbelieve from that of which they are warned are turning away. So Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, هذا ثناء منه تعالى على كتاب العزيز. So he starts with the second ayah. Hamim, as previously mentioned, this is from the huruf al-muqatta'a, the separated letters. This is not ham, it's hamim. The letter ha and then the letter mim as alif lam mim and the rest of these surahs that starts with these letters. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what they mean, because there's no proof or evidence if it has a meaning or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what does it mean. And the challenge in the Quran to the people to bring the like of the Quran, that it's made from the same letters that they speak. So he says here, with regards to the next ayah, تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم, and that's the same thing. Also Surah Al-Jathiyah has the same ayah, تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم. He says, هذا ثناء منه تعالى. This is ثناء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising from him subhanahu wa ta'ala على كتابه العزيز, for his kitab, the book, Al-Quran, Al-Aziz, the Almighty, the honorable book, وتعظيم له, and exalting it. تنزيل الكتاب من الله. Min Allah, from Allah, brings this ta'zim in the heart, that this book is revealed, brought down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, وَفِي ضِمْنِ ذَلِكَ إِرْشَادُ الْعِبَادِ إِلَى الْإِهْتِدَاءِ بِنُورِهِ. If it's brought down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means what? That means seek guidance by the book of Allah. There's no guidance except the guidance of the book of Allah and the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, because it's min Allah. Tanzil, and we talked about tanzil, this is a noun, that means it's brought down. Comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has also in it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all of his creation subhanahu wa ta'ala, over his throne. Tanzil al-kitabi min Allah al-aziz al-hakim, the Almighty al-Hakim. He said, وَفِي ضِمْنِ ذَلِكَ إِرْشَادُ الْعِبَادِ إِلَى الْإِهْتِدَاءِ بِنُورِهِ. This is irshad. في ضمن ذلك, that means included in that statement, irshadul ibad, the guidance to the ibad, to the human beings, to the slaves of Allah, إلى الاهتداء بنوره, to be guided by the light of the Quran, والإقبال على تدبر آياته, and to come forward to reflect upon the ayat of the Quran, واستخراج كنوزه, and to extract the treasures of the Quran. All of that and more is just from the fact that this is Tanzilul Kitabi min Allah al-Aziz al-Hakim. So the exaltation in the heart, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Hakim, the most wise. So therefore, come forward. And this is the action done by the heart when a person reads this, that he comes forward to learn the tafseer of the Quran, to reflect upon the meanings, with the intention to be guided according to the ayat of the Quran, to seek guidance, and therefore our actions will follow as a result of understanding these meanings. And one of these actions is ta'zimullah and al-ihtida' bi kitabillah, this truthfulness in the heart that a person wants to be guided by the book of Allah. Then he says, Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, وَلَمَّا بَيَّنَ إِنزَالَ كِتَابِهِ الْمُتَضَمِّنْ لِلْأَمْرِ وَالنَّهِي. When he subhanahu wa ta'ala made clear إنزال كتابه, that he brought his book, al-mutadammin, that includes to al-amr wal-nahi, to the commands from Allah, the things that are forbidden. ذكر خلقه السماوات والأرض. He mentioned his creation, that he created the heavens and the earth. فجمع بين الخلق والأمر. So the two meanings of al-khalq wal-amr are included here. ألا له الخلق والأمر. Al-khalq is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. And if the disbelievers, they believe that, the mushrikeen, they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the heavens and the earth. So therefore, al-amr also belong to Allah. The commands should be also from Allah, which is the religion. If he's the creator, that means he's the one to be obeyed, he's the one to be worshipped. And جمع بين الخلق والأمر. الأمر تنزيل الكتاب من الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-Aziz al-Hakim. And then ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق. That he did not create the heavens and the earth and what's in between them except in truth and for the truth. And that is the amr from Allah, that people would follow the commands of Allah. He says, ألا له الخلق والأمر. He says, كما قال تعالى الله الذي خلق سبع سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن يتنزل الأمر بينهن. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created the seven heavens and the earth, the like of them. يتنزل الأمر. The amr, the command of Allah, comes down between them. Whether it's al-amr al-qadari, the universal decree from Allah, or al-amr al-shar'i, the religious commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you see, the meanings are repeated. The believers are the only ones that would fulfill both commands from Allah, al-amr al-kawni wa shari. Everyone is under the decree of Allah. No one can go against that. But the believers, when it comes to the choice, they follow the commands of Allah, al-amr al-shari. But these believers, they're still under the amr, but al-kawni. The qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is established upon them. But al-shari, they disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as a result of that, in the hereafter, they would, the punishment as it's mentioned in the Quran. He says, وَكَمَا قَالَ تَعَالَى يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ بِالرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ عَلَى مَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ أَنْ أَنذِرُوا أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاتَّقُونَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ. So he's mentioning here some of the verses in the Quran that has this jam', bringing both al-amr al-kawni wal-amr al-shar'i, and al-khalq wal-amr. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created the seven heavens, and from the earth, the like of them, يَتَنَزَّلُ الْأَمْرُ بَيْنَهُم. That's the previous one. And يُنَزِّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. The angels, He subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down the angels بِالرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ. بالروح is the revelation from Allah. من أمره, from the command of Allah. This is al-amr al-shar'i, the religious commands of Allah, which is the wahy from Allah. على من يشاء من عباده, on whoever He wills from His ibad, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the messengers of Allah. أن أنذروا أنه لا إله إلا أنا فاتقون. This is al-amr al-shar'i. All of that is the religious commands of Allah. That you warn that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فاتقون, so have the taqwa, fear Allah, be obedient to Allah. خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق. That's the khalq. He created the heavens and the earth in truth. So جمع بين الأمر والخلق, أو بين الخلق والأمر. So you go both ways. Since He is the creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore be obedient to Him. He brought down the book for people to be obedient to Allah because He created the heavens and the earth. So they always go together, and that shows the contradictions of the disbelievers, those who associate partners with Allah. He says, فَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمُكَلَّفِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that خلق المكلفين. المكلفين is the plural of al-mukallaf. Al-mukallaf is the one that is responsible. He's been entrusted with something because it fits him, because he can fulfill the obligation and the trust perfectly. That's why al-mukallaf is the human beings. Cats and dogs are not mukallafin. Animals are not mukallafin. They're not been entrusted to be obedient or disobedient. It's only the human beings and the jinn. And sinnu taklif, the age of taklif, is the age of puberty. So the word at-taklif comes from someone that has been given a job to do, and he will be either punished or rewarded. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala خلق المكلفين. And when He created them subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created in them, according to His creation, the amr fits perfectly the mukallafin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created the human beings, He did not give them the taklif to push mountains from its place, or to be the richest person on the face of earth, which is something that is unattainable for every single person. He did not command everyone to be the kings and to be the rulers, and everyone has to go after this. What's the commands of Allah? It's in the capacity of every single human being. So the richest and the poorest, and the strongest and the weakest, every single person, if he is sane, if he's a human being, that means he can fulfill perfectly the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the miraculous things about the deen of Allah. So خلق المكلفين, and that's the significance of the word al-mukallafin. And you connect that with al-khalq wal-amr. He's the one that created not just the heavens and the earth, the human beings also, and He commanded them or forbade them from things, made them mukallafin based on the khalq, their khalq and the khalq of السماوات والأرض. هو الذي خلق المكلفين وخلق مساكنهم, and He created their dwellings. وسخر لهم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, and He made what's in the heavens and the earth مسخر. And we talked about at-taskhir. That means that they're under their commands, under their service. They're created for them, not the opposite. So the heavens and the earth are created for the human being, for the mukallafin, for them to fulfill the purpose of their life. وسخر لهم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ثم أرسل إليهم رسلا. Then He sent to them His messengers. وأنزل عليهم كتبه, and he brought down unto them his books. وأمرهم ونهاهم, and he commanded them and he forbade them. وأخبرهم, and he informed them أن هذه الدار, that this dar, this place, and that dar can be can refer to the house or the place that a person in general, which is dar al-dunya versus dar al-akhirah. أن هذه الدار, this place, this dunya, دار أعمال وممر للعمال, is the place, is the home of actions. وممر, and a passage to the عمال. العمال are the workers. So al-a'mal are the actions and al-ummal are the workers. So it's a passage for the individuals. And because they're not every single human being would live from the time of Adam alayhi salam to the day of judgment. They come and they take their portion of their time and they leave. 60, 70 more or less, or whatever there is. So this is how it's a passage to them. But the dunya, the amount of time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for this worldly life to be in place till the day of judgment, it's much longer than the life of every single human being. So that's why Darul A'mal, this is the entire dunya is Darul A'mal. وَمَمَرٌ لِلْعُمَّالِ, and a passage to the workers because they're not staying there forever. لا دار إقامة, not the dar of إقامة. الإقامة is the residency, is the everlasting place. لا يرحل عنها أهلها, that they don't depart from it. الرحيل is when someone leaves and never come back. Sometimes it's used for someone also when he comes back. But لا يرحل عنها أهلها, they won't. This is not دار إقامة. دار الإقامة لا يرحل عنها أهلها. If it's the place for them to be forever, then they won't leave it, they won't depart from it. But that's not the case of this worldly life. وهم سينتقلون منها إلى دار الإقامة والقرارة. They will be moved. سينتقلون, الانتقال من إلى, from to. إلى دار الإقامة is to the place, to the abode of الإقامة, the real residency, the everlasting place. والقرارة, al-qarar is when something in the bottom of things doesn't move. This is the everlasting life. وموطن الخلود والدوام, and the place. الموطن, الوطن is one's country, is one's place that he was born and raised in. And موطن is the place where a person would be in there forever. الخلود, the everlasting life. والدوام, the continuity of it forever. وإنما أعمالهم التي عملوها في هذه الدار سيجدون ثوابها في تلك الدار كما موفرة. And their deeds, أعمالهم التي عملوها, that they did in this dar, in this worldly dar, in this worldly life, سيجدون, they will. The scene here is for the future. سيجدون, they will find ثوابها, its rewards, في تلك الدار. تلك إشارة البعيد, إشارة to the latter one, the further one, which is the hereafter. كاملا موفرا, full, and موفرا, كاملا, complete, موفرا, full. Nothing is missed. And they don't have to remember necessarily every action that they did because it's been recorded for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy. Unless a person needs to remember something to repent or to expiate for a kafara or anything like this. Other than that, just worry about the obligations and the recommended acts and stay away from haram and seek repentance from Allah and so on. He says, وَأَقَامَ تَعَالَى الْأَدِلَّةَ الدَّالَّةَ عَلَى تِلْكَ الدَّارِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established أقام الأدلة, the evidences, الدالة, the evidences, there is an evidence for تلك الدار. So since it's in the same context together, so تلك refers to the hereafter. To the hereafter. وأذاق العباد. This is another important meaning that should be remembered. وأذاق العباد نموذجا من الثواب والعقاب العاجل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the ibad, made the human beings, adhaq, that means made them taste, namudajan. And namudaj is the prototype of something, the example, sample of al-thawab wal-iqab, the punishment and the reward, the rewards and the punishment, al-ajil, the immediate one. So this is part of what's the wisdom, that there is punishment and rewards in this life. It's not laysa thawaban kamilan wala iqaban kamila. الثواب والعقاب in this life is not complete, is not the complete thawab or the complete iqab. This is to be namudaj, to be a sample for people to understand what is the meaning of thawab and iqab. If this life was just nothing but whatever a person desires, no pain, no punishment, even as far as there's the khalq and the amr again. Whether in the khalq, in the decree of Allah, that there are earthquakes, people die, whatever there is, versus al-uqubat, or the punishment that is legislated by the people of authority, which is part of the deen of Allah. The one that steals, this happens to him, and things like this. This is not the perfect or the most complete uquba. It's only one of the wisdom behind it, of course, to govern the lives of the people and for people to humble themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for them to see the sample, the example of what's going to be in the hereafter, but far more than what they can even comprehend. But they would understand. So if someone says there's punishment in the hereafter, we're not coming out of say what is punishment. No, punishment is understood. Rewards is understood. So this is when a person then receives something good in this life. That's how Salaf used to relate to the ayat of the Quran. When something good happens to them, it reminds them of the good in the hereafter, because there's the like of it in Jannah. And if something bad happens to them, they remember what's bad in the hereafter. So they would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them to be protected from what's evil in the hereafter, and so on. And therefore, this is a very important concept again. And whenever there is uquba or a reward in this life, and it's not the ultimate uquba, not the ultimate reward, it's imma limaslaha aw lihikmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, whether it's by the qadr or whether it's by the amr al-shar'i, either for a benefit for the people or a hikmah or a wisdom that people need to reflect upon that wisdom. Maslaha masalih al-ibad. And this is something that Sheikh Santani rahimahullah, when he talked about this. ليست العقوبة في الدنيا عقوبة تامة. There's no complete punishment in this life. But it happens when it happens because either a maslaha or hikmah. Maslaha because the life of the people cannot be governed. They cannot live a goodly life without punishments. Otherwise the evil ones will do whatever they want. And al-hikmah. The hikmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for people to reflect upon what happens. That's why the nations before, all of the stories of the Quran about the nations before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed their punishment for people to see there's punishment. And even if the like of these punishments is not in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, but already it's been established before, so that people understand what it means. And the moment of death comes, then it's the real punishment or the real reward. The complete reward or punishment is not too far as some people think. Why there's so much evil? Why there's so much this? The good doers are not rewarded. The evil ones are not punished. Just be patient. It's just the moment of death. Once it comes, this is the everlasting punishment or the everlasting rewards. Then he says, so this is وَأَذَاقَ الْعِبَادَ نَمُوذَجًا مِنَ الثَّوَابِ وَالْعِقَابِ الْعَاجِلِ, the immediate one. لِيَكُونَ أَدْعَى لَهُمْ إِلَى طَلَبِ الْمَحْبُوبِ وَالْهَرَبِ مِنَ الْمَرْهُوبِ. For that to be أَدْعَى لَهُم, to be more likely and more calling for them, that they would seek al-mahbub, طلب al-mahbub, what's beloved to them, والهرب من المرهوب, and to flee and run away from what is feared. And this is all by the mercy of Allah. Imagine that again, this life has nothing of this, and the revelation comes. How many people would believe? We rarely find someone to believe. As it's mentioned also about the example of those given the Zukhruf in Surah Al-Zukhruf, we talked about that. So again, this is, as he mentioned here, وَلِهَذَا قَالَ هُنَا, that's why he said here, ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق. We did not create the heavens and the earth and what's in between them except بالحق, said by the truth. أي لا عبثا ولا سودا. Not for play or nonsense. This is to human beings that can do this. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is created without a reason. بل ليعرف العباد عظمة خالقهما. But for the ibad, for the people to see and to witness the greatness of the Khaliq of السماوات والأرض, خالقهما, the dual tense here, the heavens and the earth, ويستدل على كماله, and for them to take evidence of that, of how perfect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his names and attributes. ويعلم أن الذي خلقهما على عظمهما قادر على أن يعيد العباد بعد موتهم للجزاء. And for them to know, and that's part of the taklif, part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created and installed in every human being, that they can reach this conclusion very easily. And for them to know that the one that created the heavens and the earth on their greatness like this mighty creation of Allah, He is the one that is able to repeat their life again after their death, which is nothing compared to the creation of the heavens and the earth. Lil jaza, for the recompense, al jaza, because He's the most just, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's the creator of the heavens and the earth, and there is no way that injustices or good deeds will be left to be like that without rewards or punishment in the hereafter. وأن خلقهما وبقاءهما مقدر إلى أجل مسمى. And their creation and their staying, meaning without, before they are perished or destroyed, مقدر, that's decreed by the qadr of Allah, إلى أجل مسمى, to a very specific measure or time, which everybody then return to Allah. Then at the end he says, فلما أخبر بذلك. So when he informed about this, وهو أصدق القائلين, and he's the most truthful of all those who would speak, وأقام الدليل, and established the evidence, وأنار السبيل, and he made the path light and clear, أخبر مع ذلك أن طائفة من الخلق قد أبوا إلا إعراضا عن الحق. He informed, as the ayah says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and the disbelievers. He informed that with all of that, a group of al-khalq, طائفة, from the creation, قد أبوا, they refused إلا إعراضا, they refused but to turn away and to make إعراض, turning away from the truth, عن الحق. وصدوفا, الصدوف from a صدف, that means also to turn away, عن دعوة الرسل, from the da'wah, the call of the messengers. فقالوا الذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون, and those who disbelieved, عما أنذروا, from what they have been warned against, معرضون, turned away. And you see how the تقديم والتأخير, والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون, not والذين كفروا معرضون عما أنذروا, gives the same meaning, but عما أنذروا is mentioned first to show that it's a very serious matter. They have been warned, and that human beings, whenever they are warned, they take warnings seriously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human beings that whenever they are warned, they don't relax. He created them this way. Whoever are warned of imminent danger coming their way and they relax, they laugh about it, he's majnoon. He's insane. This is not mukallaf. Al-mukallaf, if he is warned, he would have his entire body in alert, and he would act even differently, completely different than he even when he's serious in a matter. So the indhar came. So why they're relaxing the indhar? That means they deserve to be punished because they're going against their nature. So this is not their fitrah. So الذين كفروا عما أنذروا, so that when you hear this, when you read this, you see how ignorant they are. عما أنذروا معرضون. He says وأما الذين آمنوا. So the opposite, what's it's supposed to be the case. وأما الذين آمنوا, as for the believers, فلما علموا حقيقة الحال, when they get to know the reality of that state of this life and the hereafter, and the warnings are there, قبلوا وصايا ربهم, they accepted the wasaya, plural of wasiyah, the commands and the bequest and the will and the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord, وتلقوها, and they received it, بالقبول والتسليم, accepting it and submitting themselves to it, وقابلوها بالانقياد والتعظيم, and they received it with al-inqiyad, submission, exalting the commands of Allah because it's from their Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ففازوا بكل خير, so they attained and they won every matter of goodness, وَانْدَفَعَ عَنْهُمْ كُلَّ شَرٍ, and every evil pushed away from them. So, and this is how the believers, they receive the commands of Allah. And as we see, there is no musibah, there is no calamity on this face of earth unless it's a test from Allah. There is no goodness in this life unless it's a test from Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So never for a human being to have their own prejudgment of this is good and this is bad. The only thing that we know that this is good, and pure bad, is from al-amr al-shar'i, the religious commands. Salah is good, not making salah is evil. Faithfulness is good, lying is bad, like this. This is pure good versus pure evil. How did we know that? From the revelation from Allah, from the Quran and the Sunnah. But someone loses his life, loses his wealth, sickness, diseases, all of these things, it can be either good or bad. We do not know. It depends on al-amr al-shar'i. It's all according to the Amr al-Shar'i. What's the end of it? What's the religious things of it? Someone get in an accident, so he quit making salah. Someone's heart is attached to someone else, so he loses religion because he loves someone, a human being, or tests from Allah. So it's all tests from Allah, and that's why the heart should be more attached and attached only to the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that this dunya is not dar al-jaza. This is dar al-amal and al-imtihan and the test from Allah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding of what we hear. And again, all of this, too much talking that we talk, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum was sufficient for them just to hear the ayat like this. Because they also have been commanded to understand and to reflect. And that also shows the importance of the language when we understand the words, how clear the words are and what it means and what it signifies. And then the heart is having that truthfulness in it, and then the person would act accordingly. Then at tadabbur and the reflection and the action according to how these verses are is perfect by the will of Allah. So حاميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق. Negation and exception, that means this is the only reason and the only way. وأجل مسمى has a limit to it. It's not forever, so be patient. والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون. This is their state, this is their affairs. Then the verses continue inshallah ta'ala with more. بارك الله فيكم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.